Welcome, everybody, to Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate, a journey of emotional resilience. I'm your host, Brandon. Have Michael back joining us this week. So, Michael, how you doing?
Fantastic as always. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, yeah, man. Good seeing you again. Good having you back. Conversations go much better than when I'm talking by myself and to myself. So, I appreciate you being back on. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, man. So, excited first topic discussion of May. A lot of these topic discussions this month is really going to be looking at ourselves and that journey of self-discovery and identity and awareness and building confidence and just a lot of that stuff kind of all tied up. So, going with this first one of, just really embarking on that journey of self-discovery and, figuring out who we are, what we want to be about, what we represent, and just really finding out what our purpose is, our passions are, and figuring out what success is to us, and then, striving for it. And so I think that's a really tough thing to go about in life today. I saw a quote that was, to be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest achievement. And I think that rings true in this because we are in a world that, tries to influence everything we do and our perspectives, our ideas, who we are, how we look, the way we dress, everything, right? All the way down to the clothes we wear, the car we drive, the way we talk. And so to kind of embark and go on that journey is really just about figuring out what you want out of life. Figuring out, like I said, defining what success is to you and then striving for that. And there's a lot of different things that are going to get in the way of that. There's a lot of different things that are going to try to, throw you off course, or there's a lot of different things that you're just going to get involved in that you realize isn't for you either. So, obviously looking at, who we are and connecting that to mental health is obviously a big thing because it's hard to feel mentally healthy while we're still struggling with who we are on the inside.
Yeah, no, it really is. I think kind of that refers to our identity or how we identify ourselves to be in life, and not knowing that type of identity can really be a struggle, can make you not really be sure of what your purpose might be, or you might not be able to understand or ask that question the right way. What is my purpose here? How am I supposed to do the things I'm supposed to do that I'm going to be happy with, or they're going to make me happy or make a family happy? And I know that's where I kind of thought I knew where I was going because at a young age I was playing soccer, so I kind of had that identity athlete, not like a jock, but I played soccer. I also played an instrument, so I kind of had the musical side in me too. So I kind of had a unique. Not too many soccer players were in band and vice versa, so I felt kind of unique in that sense. But then you get to college and everybody's kind of got more stuff than just the normal person. So I kind of maybe had to reconnect, and there were times where maybe I just wasn't quite being myself or who I thought myself was to maybe fit in. And I think sometimes we try to discover ourselves by maybe trying to do things that we might not think are us, but we kind of try to see if that is something we could see ourselves doing or the way we behave. And I kind of like how you said it early on. Yeah, a lot of stuff is meant to influence us. And I know for me, even the stuff I'm wearing right now has been an influence in some way that maybe wasn't even my own, but then I've taken as my own. Like, I like this, so I'm going to rock it. And I know that's sometimes where we kind of understand, hey, this is what I like, so I'm going to rock it, or I'm going to wear it, or I'm going to do it. And finding that can be difficult. And I think that discovery, that journey that you go on is super important and can be fun and challenging at the same time.
Yeah, no, and I like what you just said with, trying different things, right? That's kind of how we figure out what we're all about is we end up in these different areas. 'Cause I think if we just stay in one lane our whole life and with one idea, one perspective, and we don't venture out of that a little bit, then we're really limiting what our self-discovery can be and really limiting what that journey can look like. But when we try stuff, when we put stuff out there, we can really realize like, oh yeah, I do like this. I want this to be a part of me. Like obviously being able to relate with the soccer thing. Um, I still remember the first time I kicked a ball, and because I started later than a lot of people. I started when I was 10 or 11. And our pastor at our church was like, "Hey, I gotta, he's a coach on a soccer team. You should come play." I went to my first tryout. So it was like four kids, and he was just working me into it in jeans and tennis shoes because that was the first sport I ever played. I was not athletic, but dude, I fell in love with it right away. And right away, that became such a big part of my identity. Like everything I did, was soccer. And that's shown throughout my whole life. Even when I've lost track of myself, or even when I've gone through those different challenges, there was always still some type of connection to soccer, whether it was coaching, whether it was just being a fan, right, and enjoying the games and that those type of things, or it was always trying to work my way back into it, try coming back to AB the second time. I went and played at a small Christian college after AB that second time, and so I was always trying to find my way back into it. And that was one of those things I realized early on that that was a big part of me. And I think kind of going along with what you just said, we also realize what we don't want to be a part of, right? We also realize those things that go against, how we feel on the inside and how we truly live. Because you can feel those moments, right? Like where you're doing something or you're involved in something and you just feel so conflicted about it in that moment because it's like, do I really want to do this? Is this really what I want to, I want people to look at me as, or is this what I want to represent? There can be behaviors or choices we make like that. Shit, it could even be, driving a certain car. It could be wearing certain clothes. Could be tattoos. Could be piercings. It could be a lot of things that we just like, we end up feeling conflicted about because maybe it doesn't actually align with what we truly feel on the inside. And I think we have to allow ourselves to have those experiences, right? We have to allow ourselves to either experience new things or even be a part of some things that challenge our perspectives. Because I also think if we're never challenged in our thought process and our perspective, then we never really get to whether we truly believe in that or not, or whether it's a little more surface level with that idea, perspective, or purpose that we feel in life.
Yeah, wow, no, I 100% agree. I also can relate to kind of should I be here type of situation because I know at AB, once I started to hang out with some of the non-soccer kids, I was basically the soccer kid who didn't hang out with the soccer kids. I was hanging out with the smokers, the stoners, even people that smoke cigarettes. And even though I never did, that was the crowd that you would see me outside of the dorms just talking to, hanging out with. And there were times where I was like, I don't know if this feels right because should I be hanging out with the soccer kids? We're all on the team. We're trying to bond. We're building a more than just a team. We're a family. And yet here I am kind of the lone shark out here just talking and hanging out with other people. And not that that's a bad thing and nor that it was. And I don't see it as that, especially now in my life. But in those moments where we kind of are hanging out or doing things we're not quite sure, is that who I really want to see myself as or with? And I know that, our soccer coach, Ned, had a great conversation with me that I respect even to this day. He was just like, look, man, the company you keep impacts some of the people around you and, how they see you. And while that may be right, may not be right or wrong, it is the reality of it. So just choose who you hang around with carefully, depending on how you want to be perceived and how you want yourself to look to other people. And it made a lot of sense at the time, though I was smoking, so I didn't really care what he said. So I was kind of more like, cool, thanks for the advice, but I'm going to go get high, basically, without telling him that. So that's where it can kind of conflict, even if it might not be the most serious thing you're doing. It might not be the needle in the arm or the, I'm about to go door ding dong ditch and then steal money or something, might not be that. But even if it is, you can still kind of think in the moment, like, I have control over my actions. If this is what I want, then do it. But if you're not sure, that's when you kind of have to try to see if you can't take a step back or at least learn from that after the fact and be like, yeah, I don't like how that made me feel. That's never really been me, whether you were influenced or you made the decision yourself. I think that's getting to that is where the journey can really start to take its path the way you want it to, because you kind of like, dang, I don't see myself doing that every day. And if I do, that's not necessarily me. And that's not how I was raised. I don't want to be somebody I'm not. And I think that's sometimes where the struggle lies as you start to mature more and kind of try to figure out what is my true identity.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point there with what you said about that perception and who we're around, right? The company we keep, because I think that's part of that process of self discovery is figuring out what kind of company that you want to keep. Um, I think a lot of the times, especially when we're younger or when we're doing things that we perceive as fun at the time, or as we perceive as what we want to do, or if that's really what we want to do. Sometimes you realize that the people in that circle aren't really, that good of friends, and living, and running in the drug circles, you realize that quick. And like, even though that's who I'm hanging out with, that's who people maybe see as my friends, like, you learn that we're not around each other looking out for each other, right? Like me and you, yeah, we smoked together and we did those things, but there was moments where we had to look out for each other. There was moments where we had to lean on each other, and so that relationship's different. But when I'm shooting up with somebody, and I'm nodded out, passed out, and they're gonna start, seeing if I have any extra money, see if I have any drugs left over, and then bail by the time I wake up. That's just part of that lifestyle. And so I think that's part of it, is realizing, even if it's not just the company we keep, but those things that we do, those places that we put ourselves in, if those aren't really, what we feel good in, then that's where, like you just said, we have to really think about whether we actually want to be there. We have to think about, like, okay, I don't really feel good hanging around these people because they are shady, or because they're just not good people, or because they're like, pulling me down, or I'm pulling them down, and it's just not a positive relationship. So that's a big part of that, is are those external factors, right? Those things that, I think, going back to the beginning, those influences in life. Like, it doesn't always just have to be, media or something bigger. It can be our teammates, being like, yo, what are you doing hanging out with those people? Though, they're not good for you, or, they're bad people because they see them, and, they're talking about certain people we know are really actually good people and fun people to be around. And it's like, nah, like, you don't know them like that, but it influences, right? Then we don't want to be seen with them, even though we're really good friends with them. And we probably can think of some of those people in our head. Like, we don't want certain guys on our team to see us with them, because then they're judging us, or they're, thinking, oh, they're like, oh, okay, they're off doing their shit again, and that's a challenging part about that self-discovery, is there's so many factors and influences and different things that we have to go through in order to do that. And as we go through that, we start, uncovering different layers of us. It's like, okay, yeah, like, yeah, soccer's a big part of me, but these people over here are a big part of my life too. And if they don't go together, then I have to figure out a way to make that work. Or, those different moments in our life where we have those two things conflicting. We want to be a part of both, for whatever reasons. We have to figure out how to make that work for us, and not shy away from one thing we truly care about just because some other people don't like it. And just thinking about it, man, I loved wrestling when I was growing up. I loved it, man. I like the drama behind it, the show behind it. Like, I'm gonna say, I know it was fake because people reminded me of that all the time. Like, I get it, but so is every TV show everybody else watched, right? It's all fake. It's scripted. It's just something that's part of it, and I loved it growing up. But I didn't want to tell people, man. I didn't want to tell people. I didn't want to even, like, be seen talking about wrestling to somebody, because, like, I would, for some reason, with my insecurities and all that, I was embarrassed, and I didn't want to get made fun of for something else, because, I grew when I first started playing soccer in Georgia, I got made fun of that. I was a foot fairy, and, that type of shit. That was part of that. So I think, we have to be able to really challenge those perspectives on stuff that we love and we want to be a part of, in order to fully embrace them.
Wow. Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head there, and I know that through my experiences have been similar, where it's like that. In the example you gave with maybe the team not accepting, or at least being receptive to who we're hanging out with, and then that in turn affects maybe how they treat us on the field, and now that affects the whole team's chemistry and maybe how we play games, and that should have nothing to do with it because it's off the field, but yet here we are not being trusted by our own teammates because they don't really know if we're mentally there because of what they think is completely wrong, when we're thinking, look, I'm not saying it's 100% right, but it doesn't feel wrong because they're friends. I know them. We got to know them while we're hanging out and connecting over something that maybe isn't the same as connecting over soccer. I feel like the connection was still made in a way that was beneficial for both people to be friends. It wasn't like we were just using one each other to get the drugs, or to get the weed. We weren't just trying to, hey man, I'm only hanging out with you because I know you got it. Other than that, I'm dipping. It wasn't like that. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna hang out with you for 4 hours. We're gonna chill twice, and then I'm going to pass out. Like, it was fun, and then go back the next morning and have 7 a.m. practice. Like, it wasn't a big deal for us when we were doing it, but like you said, the perception, the overall outlook from the outside coming in wasn't always favorable, and I think that's kind of where we would see some of that resistance even from some of our closest friends that we were either living with or just got to know really well. It just, you could tell that they weren't quite the same. They didn't give us that same natural trust and love like they were giving everyone else, because they were, like you said, well, they're off doing their same old routine, smoking or whatever, just not with the team, not with the soccer team. And I know that I kind of had my, I think I'll call it an aha moment back when I got home from school after I graduated, where I was like, this cannot be me. This is not the life I'm going to live. And basically, I was going to, give somebody, not give, sell, but I was going to give somebody a whole bunch, as a large amount of marijuana. And I'll never forget, dude walked up, sat in the car, had a gun, and was like, I'm taking it. And I was just like, I just
Yep.
gave it to him, and that was just the end of it. Because I'm not, first, if you're going to get shot over marijuana, then you're going to get shot over marijuana. It's not worth it to me. But that's when I realized if I got a gun at me and I'm this supposedly good guy that doesn't really get involved with things that endanger my life or my safety, I've got to figure out what I'm doing. And I got to really take a step back and say, what journey am I on? Am I on the journey towards self-destruction? Am I on the journey towards jail, or worse, being dead, when I was raised well and had a good family? So there's no reason, there's nothing that would give me, oh man, you know what? Both his parents died when he was 7, divorce, whatever. He's got all the reason to be mad. Even then, but still, I didn't. So it's like, I can't live with myself. I can't look at myself in the mirror. And so from that moment on, I just stopped messing with any type of distribution of anything, because it just wasn't worth it. You can't trust. I think somebody put it to me a very poetic way. I'm a good guy in a dirty man's game, and it's just never going to match, because unfortunately, you're not going to be the person you need to be in those moments. And so for me, that was just kind of my wake up moment. Like, I can't keep going on this path. That's not me. So that is what I am not. And I think that was a big part of finding who I was, by figuring out, okay, this is what I'm not. So by that almost process of elimination, I'm definitely not that. What else maybe am I not that can help me find what I am? Because that was so powerful for me when I realized, nah, I'm done. And I can't live like that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I can relate to that, so much. Just, kind of going, we have that relation in a lot of the different things that we've done, maybe not to the extreme, or not the same situations, but just like, I had that same too. I had that love growing up. I had a good home. My parents did everything for me, try to find me opportunities, support me in anything I wanted to do. And I ended up a heroin addict, man. And that was so conflicting of that, because not only was I thinking that, I had those internalized thoughts of like, this is not who I am. This is not how I was raised. This is not what I'm about. But I also had those external ones too, from people just being like, yo, you had a good home. You had good grades. You were playing, you were a college athlete. And those just aren't things, for some reason, I didn't identify with. It's kind of funny, because I was driving the other day, and I don't know why I thought about this, but I'm like, shit, I was a college athlete, and I never identified like that. I never, for some reason, that was just not something that was a big deal to me, because I was going through all those other internal conflicts that I had. And I like that story that you told, and I'm glad you didn't get shot over some weed, and it's unfortunate that goes to those places, but it is what it is, right? I mean, you're involved in that. That's probably going to happen at some point. And I remember when I was doing that, when I was slinging or selling different stuff, and like I felt like I had to change my whole persona, the way I dressed, the way I talked, everything, because you have to be a certain way, or that's going to happen. I still got taken advantage of, because that's not who I was. I wasn't this hard nosed, I'm going to break your kneecaps unless you get me my money. I just wasn't like that. So it didn't work out for me either. Um, and we go through those moments, right? And, as I eliminated, like you were just talking about, and I love that, as I eliminated some of those different things, I started to find more of who I was. right? When we can eliminate, when I got rid of the drugs, when I got rid of the bars, when I got rid of the, the neighborhoods I walked in or the people I was around, once I got clean, I started to really being able to see who I was and what I was about, right? You start eliminating some of those things that maybe you've experienced or you just know from the get go. Like I'm sure a lot of people in the world can say, yeah, I'm not about heroin. But I, I had to figure that out the hard way, right? And when we can start eliminating those and we can start like taking that step back and saying, all right, this is what I want to be a part of. This is where I want to spend my time. This is what I want to be about. We start taking away those negative things, right? We want to be able to produce outcomes that make our life something special, right? I made a whole lot of outcomes in my life from choices I made or behaviors I had that were negative for me. Almost every single choice I made there for like a period of 10 years was negative for me. And I wasn't making those choices that made me happy. I wasn't making those choices that lifted me up. I wasn't making those choices that made me happy and brought joy into my life. And so yeah, I think that's a really big point you just said with eliminating some of those negatives or some of those things that you tried and you realized weren't for you. And that's really where you can start to figure out who you are and what you want to be about and how you want to represent yourself and how you want to live your life and start moving towards that ultimate goal, right? Of what we define as success. And I think that's like, can be a big first step in this journey is figuring out what you're not about, right? Is picking out those things you don't want to, who are you not? And then what is success to me? Because then you know what you're striving for. Then you know what you want to be about. And I think I found, that a huge part of what I want to represent, what I want to do is this type of stuff. Like I have a real passion for mental health and finding different ways to better ourselves, even though I still struggle at times and I go through those hard moments. I go through those dark moments. I know when I keep going with this, I can get myself out of it. I know I can get myself into a better place. And then hopefully I can bring that conversation to somebody else that may be struggling or needs a sliver of hope or just needs to hear that right sentence or said by the right person or said in the right framing of words to have something click in their head to start moving them in that right direction. So, I think that's a big part of it. And I think as we continue on that journey, then we get more involved in it. And then we make it a bigger part of our lives. And just in that sense, it just already pushes out some of those other things that's like, yeah, I don't want to hang out with those people because I feel like shit when I'm with them. Or they're kind of, they're not people I want to associate with. Or I don't want to go to that bar because I'm hungover, extremely hungover every time. Or I don't want to watch, TV all day because then I don't get out and experience the world. And so you start taking away some of those options because you're invested in doing stuff like this. You're invested in our conversations together. You're invested in thinking about the next conversation, or you're invested in, like what are different ways we can go about it. And so now I don't have time to watch TV all the time. Now I don't have time to put some of those negative things in my life. And I think that's all part of that journey of figuring out who we are and what we want to be about.
Yeah, no, I can resonate with that pretty deeply because I know that when a lot of us can get to the point where we start to say, okay, I'm not this and I'm not that and I'm not that, almost as a stroke of magic, we start to see a nice path like, okay, but all those things I don't want to be, I do want to be a good person. I do want to treat my family well. I do want to make sure that I can provide for my family in the form of income. I'm maybe not chasing money for my specific example, but I want to make sure I'm comfortable. I don't want to have to be like, I've only got $100 this month for groceries. What are we not going to get? What are we going to get? I want to be comfortable enough to, hey, my little one's like, I want something. As long as you're behaving and doing things you're doing, I want to be able to say I can give her that without trying to make it up like, well, no, you weren't as good as you should have been, so we can't get it. When ultimately it's like, I got $5 in my account, so what am I going to do? I can't do anything. So finding out what that is for you, and then finding out the things that you do need to eliminate, like you just said, figuring that out is the first step. But really, like putting the phone down or closing the laptop and actually making that action to then allow you to go do those types of things that you want to surround yourself around. I think that's the major part of that step too, is just cool, I know what I want to be. I think what I don't want to do. now I need to not do those things, whether it's as simple as being on your phone for an extra hour before bed, or playing video games for those extra couple of hours when you know you probably should just go to bed, or you should spend the time with a loved one or family. So take that step and do it. That I think you'll find that's where you start to really find that freedom and realize after that next couple times, I don't even need my phone. It's easier to put it down the second time and the third time and the fourth time. It's that first time that's the hardest time. And once you start to really identify with, okay, yeah, that's me, I see where I want to go, that makes a lot more sense now to what I'm trying to accomplish. That's my version of success that I see myself as being happy. Now you can really act on it because you can visualize it. If you can't visualize something, or you can't really see where it makes sense in your life, it's going to be a struggle. And I can say that I struggled with that pretty recently. Within this last week and a half, while I had a lot of stuff going on, I was just kind of struggling with who I was. I wasn't exactly happy with how I was doing at work. I kind of had a relapse of my emotions when I first started joining with the company and what I was doing. I was like, I don't know that this is who I am. Am I gonna do this for the rest of my life? Is this really what I want to do? And I was having almost an identity crisis because I had all of a sudden a lack of motivation to go to work, and I just didn't want to. I even called out for 3 days in a row because I just couldn't get my mind around what I was accomplishing, why I was there. And it took me those 3 days to really just focus on what I remember makes me happy, and the reason, the why is what everybody will talk about. But that why for me, why I'm doing the things I'm doing. And sometimes you just kind of have to take those days for yourself and almost snap yourself out of it. And thankfully it did. And I was able to refer back to a lot of the stuff that we've done, and some of the journey segments really kind of hit home that I need help, but I don't need to go pay anybody because it's not that. I don't think I need to get a counselor, but I just need some type of boost that can help me. And that's why I love what we're doing, because I think I watched 3 hours or 4 hours straight of some of the videos, and I just like, man, not that just other people have it worse, but we can all figure it out together. Sometimes we don't have to be face to face to get that type of help. And so that's where I started to kind of reclaim my identity a little bit more, like, yeah, this remembering almost how did I forget what I am, but it's easy to do. Finding, okay, this is why I want to be happy. I want to provide. I want to do the things I want to do. And I enjoy helping people find a solution to their problems. It just sometimes doesn't feel that way when you call 100 people and 99 of them say, get away from me. So that's where that type of kind of rejuvenation of the mind for me really played a huge part in me kind of reclaiming that identity, because I had felt like I was lost and I hadn't felt that way in a long time.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really important that you just shared that, right? And it shows that we can always be going through stuff, right? We can always be facing these challenges, especially when it comes to what we want to do and how we're doing it. And I think questioning that at times can be really powerful in those moments. Questioning, like, is this really what I want to be doing? Or, why am I doing this? Or what am I trying to strive for? And I know, like, I don't want to be where I'm at for the rest of my life with what I'm doing, but I thought about it, and it's kind of weird that we both had that questioning, and it just kind of it we faced it in a different way. And I think that's a great part of it, is that there's different ways to look at stuff, and sometimes we need that day or two to like take a step back and really focus on that. And then sometimes, like, I was just in a place where, like, oh man, because my job can be tough at times. I work with severely autistic and cognitively impaired, to the point where a lot of them are nonverbal, in diapers, up, from little kids to 26-year-olds is the longest they can be there. And when you have days where you got to change people, or you have days where you get hit, or you get spit on, or showering one of the kids because he doesn't get it at home, and he probably hadn't showered in a year, and helping with those different moments, it really kind of like put my put my ego, in a place of like, this is really what I want to do. Maybe not in the way I'm doing it now for the rest of my life, but I really do want to help people in whatever way I can. I really do want to be there for people in whatever way I can because it does so much for me as well. And I think that's like you just said, that's about figuring out the why. And there's going to be so many challenges to that. My previous job, I was in a much better setup in the sense of like financially and just I'd been there for 7 years, so I had different perks and different stuff like that. Um, but I got to that point where like you were just saying, like, and that point led me to leaving that job, and that's just what happened in that moment. Um, and so we face different challenges on that journey, but those challenges are good when we challenge those perspectives, or we take a step back to think about that path. That's the only way we're going to grow. That's the only way we're going to be able to keep moving forward and keep moving in the right direction. Because maybe you make that decision and you say, you know what, this isn't what I want to do right now. This isn't what I want to be. So I'm going to start looking for something else, and you adapt. Right. That's part of that journey of self discovery. Is we're growing, we're constantly changing, and I think like you just hit on, me and you are having these conversations all the time. So I've found myself in the last few months challenging my own perspectives and like, really thinking about what I'm doing and being a little more intentional because it's constantly in the forefront of my mind, right? We're constantly talking about it. So it just makes me think about it even more. And so I think when we can embrace growth, when we can have some adaptability and be okay with that, that's where we're going to keep our path or our journey of self discovery going. And it's the moments where we just stop or we give up or we just whatever it may be. That's where I think we start to lose ourselves a little bit because I know that's where I've lost myself. It just recently or over even through my time of recovery. I know I talk a lot about those moments in addiction, and obviously I'd lost myself. But even getting clean, like I've had those moments where like I just felt lost. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know, am I going to be a good dad? Am I going to be a good husband? Am I going to be a good coach? Am I going to be a good person? All these different type of things. And so I'd have moments where I lost myself and I'd end up depressed. I'd end up, not showering for a week. I'd end up calling in every day, whatever it may be. And I think when we can go through that, kind of going back to what you said in the beginning, when we go through those challenges, we learn different ways to take them. We learn different ways to approach them. We learn different ways to handle them. And that's part of that journey. Give yourself a break, have some self-compassion, some empathy for yourself in figuring out who you are, because life is tough. Life is hard. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to make it easy. And so to embrace that, to embrace those challenges, embrace the journey and the difficulties and challenges that come with it, give yourself a little bit of compassion in it, you'll continue on that journey of growth and figuring out who you are and where you really want to be.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. Don't beat yourself up because it's going to be a process. It can be tough, and especially when you're on that journey where you're trying to discover yourself and where you fit in this world and how you see yourself as a successful individual or family man, whatever the path that you decide is going to be for you. I know for me, it was up until I was maybe 30, where I was still kind of acting like I was 20. I was still had that kind of mentality where I'm not in college, but I'm kind of acting like it. I'm still a little kid at heart. I don't have major responsibilities yet, so I guess I was afforded the luxury to stay that way, and maybe that was part of what kind of forced me out of it when it came to where I met my now fiance, soon to be wife, when we first met, and as we started to grow, and I found out she had kids already, that what would come with getting with a single parent. I think I kind of had a decade of maturity happen in a matter of a few months, realizing like, okay, I can't really be the same me that's going to be also a father figure to daughters and a great companion spouse to my soon to be wife. So that's where I kind of grew and realized, okay, these are the purposes of life that really helped me get my head straight. I wasn't really making but a little bit of money here and there, just enough to pay my parents some money, and that was it. So I was still kind of riding off of what they had accomplished and still struggling with my own idea of who I was going to be, bouncing around from different jobs, as I'm sure a lot of people listening now can relate to, and just not quite sure where I was going or what I wanted to do. And it doesn't have to be specific to I'm going to be a 30-year career veteran at Newport News Shipbuilding, like my mom has done. She's been working, as a mechanical engineer for 3 decades. Maybe that's not you. It wasn't me. So once I had, though, the responsibility of knowing I was going to have family, I was going to have responsibilities to take care of someone more than me. That was for me when it clicked. Like, I've got to mature. I've got to become bigger and better than I am or than I have been. And I think that's kind of what helped me really grab my identity as I'm going to be the best person I can for myself, of course, but then to be able to provide for wife and kids, and then that type of kind of just, I guess, maturity that has to come with that. You can still act like a kid, and while I still mess around with the 8-year-old and have that fun spirit, it's not like I'm irresponsible with what we're doing. She's not running around at 10 p.m. on a school night, with no shoes on outside. We're really making sure that I'm focusing on what's important and the safety, what's not being negligent, which I know is sometimes hard to do, but that's where I kind of found my purpose, I guess is the best way I could put it. I found what I wanted to do that was more than just providing for myself. And that's what really helped me identify myself from that moment, basically 30 to now being 35. These past 5 years have been really, I'll just say, monumental in my development and my own self discovery, because now at 35 I see the self I want to be for the rest of my life when it comes to providing for family and providing for myself and my wife, and once the kids are out, doing our thing again. So I look forward to those days, and I'm willing to grind and I'm willing to put in the work that I know is necessary, because now I really have found what I want, my purpose, and what I see as successful. So that's where I'm grateful that it took kind of more than what I had to worry about myself. Once I had to worry about other people in that sense, I think it really helped me refocus and kind of rediscover myself. And that was where I think I had a real major turning point in my life.
Yeah, no, I love that, and just just being like you just said, grateful for having that moment to where it helped you define that success for you. It helped you define a little bit more of who you are and what you want to be, and I think that's a great thing to share and to hit on I thought you just did a perfect example of kind of walking through that process of everything we just talked about. Some of the moments that we're faced with that say, is this really what I want to do? Is this what I want to be about? Some of those moments that we face where we say, okay, well, we have to change or adapt if we want this in our life, right? If I want to be a father, then yeah, I can't do everything I was doing last year because I was single and I was doing drugs and I was partying. And if I want to be a good example, then I got to change some of those habits. I gotta rethink about who I want to be and what I want to represent. And that's just a really good example of that process, right? And that journey. And it's going to be challenging. I mean, figuring out who you are in this world is probably one of the hardest fucking things that you'll do, right? I mean, there's so much and there's so many challenges, and we've talked about a lot of them, and you even just talked about some of them in that in your little example there of going through it, some of those challenges that you face trying to figure that out. And all we can do is keep trying to figure it out. And that's what you do. That's how we end up to where we want to be, right? Is we keep trying, we keep challenging, we keep adapting, we keep facing those challenges, we keep embracing those successes, and we keep building to who we really want to be in this life. And it's probably it's like recovery, it's like healing, it's like dealing with different aspects of mental health. A lot of different things we've talked about is it's that lifelong journey of self-discovery. I really do think it changes at times as we go, right? As we're 19 in college playing soccer, living it up, to but both of us being back at our parents' house for different reasons, and trying to figure that out, to having 2 kids, and the different ways that we've done that and have that changed in our life. We've gone about that differently, and we face those challenges differently, but it's put us to figuring out who we are. and it's put us to figuring out what we want to do. And that's the journey of it. That's the journey of self-discovery is, take the punches, go with the flow sometimes, stand up to those barriers, those obstacles, those challenges. But be able to adapt, give yourself a break, and never give up on trying to figure out who you are and what you really want to do in your life.
Yeah, now I like that. That's three really good points that kind of highlight exactly, or at least a good foundation for trying to find who you are. It's not going to be easy, so don't give up. You're not going to have it overnight. And like you said, it's going to change over time. You're going to change either whether it's responsibilities that change in your life, whether it's just a different environment, you move overseas, you move out of town, you just don't live with your parents anymore, whatever that is for you specifically as an individual. Yeah, there's going to be times where you're just not sure, and you are going to be kind of forced to adapt. But those who can adapt, or who I'll just say are receptive to the possibility that that's something that they may have to do, just I think having that open mind can really open yourself up to new possibilities that you would have never thought. I mean, 10 years ago, I was nowhere near thinking about kids, being a father, being even a significant other, because I was focusing on me. I didn't have me figured out. How am I going to have anything else figured out? And I know a lot of people may relate to that themselves. Like, I can't even think about kids now because I can barely take care of myself. Then boom, that start there. You got to take care of yourself. Find you, be your best self. So that way, when that opportunity knocks, you don't have to worry about finding a key to a locked door. You just open the door and walk through it. And I think that for me, that was my experience when I met my fiance, soon to be wife, because I just was ready. I like 6 or 7 months before that, I kind of found that I was happy with where I was at, and I guess you could just say I was ready to meet somebody. I was open to the idea that if something happens, cool. I wasn't out there on a dating app. I wasn't out there going to bars, but I just was mentally and I'll just say spiritually open, knowing that I had found my best self and what I wanted to do, and knowing that if the time came, I could adapt myself to whether it's provide for another person, provide for a family, like it ended up being. I just felt ready. And then when that came, almost as if it was intervention in a divine sense. And I'm not necessarily saying I believe one way or another. My degree's in science, so I have that type of approach, but it still feels like paths were crossed for a reason. And for that, I'm eternally grateful, because it's just so crazy how when you're not expecting things to happen, the best things that can ever happen to you can happen. And I think that's just where I'm grateful for my experience, because it was just a coincidence, almost, you could say, how, I came to meet my soon to be wife. Crazy story. I was covering a shift for somebody who got sick, so I wasn't even supposed to be in this part of the area. So, and I was still training on that product, and so the manager was like, "Hey, man, you feel comfortable running?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" That's the first step. I could have been like, "No, I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to go." I wasn't gonna get fired for that. I just wasn't ready. But I said, "Yeah, I'll go." Cool. Went. Sure enough, they came in with a friend, talked to her the first time, nothing happened. Came back the next week, I was still working the show, talked to her a second time, and then we exchanged information, and that's essentially history, and that was 4.5 years ago. Had I not taken that show, probably would have never met this person. You know what I mean? So whether or not that was purely a coincidence or some type of, hey, intervention, I think it's more so as well me being open to just possibilities of growth, knowing that, hey, yeah, I might not be comfortable with this, but because I decided to take that leap of faith, I was then rewarded with now the love of my life. And I think that that's so powerful when you can really conceptualize how that might have went, whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe in divine intervention or not, whether you don't believe in anything. That is hard to ignore, specifically for me. And I think I'm just eternally grateful and forever blessed to know that if you do the things you're supposed to do and you're open to doing things you're not always comfortable with, you'll find that things will go in your favor more often than not, or at least I can say that was my experience.
No, I think that's I mean, perfectly said with that. And I think there's that powerful example of being open to something, right? And when you're on that journey, when you're open to that journey and you're working on yourself, you don't even have to force things like you were just talking about. You don't have to force things when you're open to things. And that's when we have those big experiences. That's when we have those moments of maybe clarity, or those moments that you can look back on, and they've changed your life forever. And I think that's a huge part of the journey of self-discovery. Is it's not always going to feel like you're moving forward, or it's not always going to feel like you're going to have those big eye-opening moments. But when you're on that journey and you're open to it and you're adapting to things that come, that's when those moments are going to happen, and you're going to be able to notice those moments. You're going to be able to see that moment and then be able to, whether you know it in the moment, whether you know it at that exact time, you probably took a step that's going to play a huge part in your future. And you look back at that and you said a certain something at that time, or you walk down a certain hallway at that time, or you said hello to a certain somebody at that time, and you realize just because you were open to it, just because you were comfortable in that moment, or you felt good in that moment, you made a decision, and that decision then impacted where you're at today. And I think that's part of that journey, right? Is being able to be open to facing those challenges. We talked about a lot of the different challenges here of what other people think, or what family may think, or what society tells us to be. We've talked about those different steps that you can take and be open to, and that's really the journey of life. We call this the journey, a journey of emotional resilience, and that's because that's really what self discovery is resilience, is being able to get through those tough moments, those moments where we doubt ourselves, and still work on figuring out who we are. And that's why, we enjoy doing this so much, is because not only do we get these moments to reflect on ourselves and things we're doing, and get to share some of those, either, special moments or crazy moments, with each other. But we get to just have a conversation that helps us in the moment, that helps us tomorrow, that helps us a week from now, but hopefully also have a conversation that can help inspire, somebody listening to what we're doing, and really open up, that journey, or have somebody in that moment say, oh yeah, I got to give myself a break. Or, oh yeah, I got to maybe take that first step of closing my laptop and getting outside a little bit. Or I got to take that first step of saying hello to that person I got this crush on for the last 2 years. And I see him every day, but I've never said a word to him. It's all about inspiring those little moments of hope, and change, to work on ourselves. And we're going to have those bad days. You're going to have those bad days. And that's all right. As long as you keep working, and you don't let those bad days turn into bad months and bad years, then you can keep that journey of growth and happiness moving.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great way to really kind of recap a great portion of kind of what we were talking about, because it's all of that combined into one. And whether it's something that you can see right away that you're going to do, or you're at the very beginning of your journey of this self discovery and you're not even sure where you're starting, perfect. Everybody's at different stages. And I'll say, until the day we take our last breath, no one's at the end of self discovery. And I think that's also important for all of us to learn. And I know a lot of the most successful people in the world always maintain that type of growth mentality, where I don't know it all. The day I know it all is the day that I am not here anymore, type of thing. And that type of mentality, I think, really helps push some of the greatest minds on our planet to keep pursuing more things, whether it's Elon Musk running, multiple companies, or, Amazon starting from a garage. And, now look at it. I'm sure that Jeff Bezos saw himself this big back in the 90s when he first started this, and he dealt with adversity and bad years of sales and growth, and maybe a bad decision that maybe I just should call this quits and go back to my day job. I mean, that's where being open and staying determined, motivated to know that I know there is more beyond this. I just have to stay true and stay focused, and remember that if I keep doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result, I'm crazy, unfortunately, because that's essentially the definition of insane, is if you're going to keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result, It's just not going to happen. So close the laptop, create a new path in life for yourself by going out and interacting with the world. Because if you're at home on your laptop every night, that's the path you created. But if you go out one time, like you said, that interaction could be with someone you've never met, someone you've been seeing every day, and just finally see them outside of a setting that now is natural, and you can say, hey, what's up? And it flows. Or, you know what, I'm going to go out and just walk because I don't get to do exercise because I work 12 hours a day and I'm at my desk all day. Whatever the case is, whatever the reason is, do something different than what you've been doing. And I think having that open mindset or that open mentality will help you find new routes and new avenues of possibilities in your life, and will open doors that you never realized were even there. You just thought you were walking down a hallway of life when every 5 steps there's another door. And that's just something that we almost take for granted. So, yeah, close the laptop, put the phone down, go out with some friends and find some new stuff so that way you can discover yourself. Because if you're doing the same things every day, you're only discovering so much of what you can do. And I think that's super important to remember when you really try to figure out how you can make changes without changing your entire person as you try to navigate, through this.
Yeah, well said. And that's just a big part of it is constantly navigating your challenges and your life and trying to do that in a positive way to where we can be better, tomorrow than we were today, and have that constant flow of growth and opportunity, and becoming happier and successful people as we go. So thank you for embarking on this journey of self-discovery with us. We're looking forward to the rest of this month and really just having these conversations that really kind of look at us in that journey through life. And I think it'll be some great conversations, some really good insight, and just sharing some examples and some experiences. Maybe they happened for us 10, 20 years ago. Maybe they happened to us last week. And that's what life is to realize, okay, these things happen. Let's keep flowing. Let's keep moving. Let's keep figuring it out. Because as long as you're doing that, you're on the right path. So thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those things. Come join us in this journey of emotional resilience. Illuminate your problems, navigate the challenges, and then radiate that positivity and that growth onto others around you. So this has been Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate. Have a great rest of your day.